Welcome to the podcast. It's more in demand than Hawthorne wipes. It's the Green Potion Podcast. I'm Matt, joined as always by Alan. How's it going, Alan?
I'm feeling great today, Matt. Today is our 10th episode of the Green Potion Podcast.
Yeah, and it feels like just last month we started a podcast because we pretty much did. But it's been a good 10 episodes, and I can't wait to get to 100.
Will we reach 100? Will we get a letter off the Queen? Who knows?
You never know. You never know. I hear she loves YouTube. I hear she loves YouTube quite a bit, actually.
Let's get into our latest episode then. Today we will be talking about Community.
This episode's called Digital Estate Planning, and it's all about the gang trying to get Pierce's inheritance from his very evil, tormented father, who has a very sick way of giving his son his inheritance. And we get to see that explored throughout this entire episode. And it's one of the best Community episodes, for sure.
Yeah, it actually is, and surprisingly, it's written by Matt Warburton, who wrote actually a few episodes of The Simpsons. He wrote that episode, the episode that's like a parody of like Hamlet, where Bart has to kill his Uncle Mo.
Oh yeah. It's one of those like 3-part story episodes.
Yeah, so he wrote that episode. We're not just fans of video games, people. We are also big fanatics of movie and TV shows. So if they can tie in with video games, we'll definitely discuss them in later episodes.
Yeah, it's funny. Our friend Kyle, who I got on the podcast, I recently got him to binge Community, and he loves it, obviously. It's a really, like, obscure show. Not obscure, but it's like a cult classic where not a ton of people watched it at first. It was always at risk of being canceled, but I think it's got, like, a huge, kind of cult status. And I think there's a lot of people that love it, and those that love it, love it a lot. I don't know that many people that watch it go, oh, Community, I hate that show. Never watching that again.
Yeah, not to sound like a gatekeeper, but, Community's always been that show about nerds that's actually for nerds, not like in the vein of Big Bang Theory, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, like Abed actually comes across as like a nerd, and it's not like, like nerd blackface. It's like actually well written to the point. It's like, yeah, I can see this person existing in this reality.
Yeah, it's not like a stupid joke in Big Bang Theory where like the gag is oh, they're nerds because Leonard comes out at night, he thinks there's a burglar in his apartment and he has like a lightsaber. Ooh.
Yeah, they don't have to rely on like a laugh track or whatever.
Yeah, Community's always been good at parodying like niche pop culture films and movies. I mean, this is probably trying to appeal to their fans that are big fans of video games, maybe.
Yeah, and RPG fans. We know Dan Harmon's famously a huge fan of D&D, has his whole podcast Harmon Quest or Harmontown. I think it's Harmontown. Where they just show him playing D&D with his party. So, you can see that RPG love leaking out of the pores of this episode. It's really nice for all those like inside nerdy jokes that only gamers really would pick up on.
What I really liked at the beginning of this episode as well is that opening where it scanned like everyone's faces and like makes them into their avatar. It just felt really nice. The music felt so smooth.
Yeah, it was a nice rendition, and Pierce acknowledges that his dad asked him to bring 7 friends, but he only brought 6 because he only had 6. And even in the intro, they load all the characters, and there's like an empty slot that says insufficient friends on there, which is a nice touch.
Yeah, the friend he couldn't get was LeVar Burton, although I don't think an individual specifically like Mr. Burton would want to hang out with Pierce Hawthorne. Pierce has always been a bit ignorant about his own ignorance, if you know what I mean, listeners.
Yeah. Speaking of LeVar Burton, over on the Redenbacher there, my Orville podcast, we mentioned LeVar Burton just yesterday. So, all the time, these, a little bit of, it's bleeding over, but it's nice to get LeVar Burton getting his some notoriety.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the Star Trek series, but I believe there's like a new Picard show, right?
Picard, yeah.
Picard. So
he could easily cameo on that. I think that they'll be throwing money at him to come on.
Maybe, who knows? I mean, probably going to be better than that other Star Trek show. What's the one with
Discovery?
Yeah, Discovery. Yeah, I hear that's garbage. So
same writer, you're gonna have the same problem. So we'll see. I hope it's good, but I doubt it. On to the show. It was a cool episode that starts off obviously with Pierce coming in to get into this video game. And he shows up it's called Hawthorne Gaming Technologies, I think is the location.
Yeah, he shows up there to collect his inheritance money because his father had passed away. In order to get the game, they have to recover the white crystal. I think the white crystal is like a callback to Breaking Bad because, Giancarlo Esposito, who plays Pierce's half-brother, he was in Breaking Bad, so maybe that was a nod back to that, I hope.
Yeah, it's true. I didn't make the connection, but this is when Giancarlo Esposito was at like the peak of his like popularity, where he blew everyone's mind with his Gus portrayal, which would have happened right around the time of filming. So, this is peak Esposito time, and he's really great at these villainous roles, or seemingly villainous roles in this case.
Yeah, if he's in a TV show I was watching at the time, as popularity, Revolution, sadly that was just one of them shows that gets cancelled, even though it has a really cool concept. He's a good actor.
So
Yeah.
Pierce's father, Cornelius, Pierce mentions that he asked him to make a video game 30 years ago, and his dad basically made this game out of spite to teach Pierce like a lesson here, which is great. Taking the son's idea and trying to punish him with it. So gives you an idea of what kind of guy Cornelius is or was.
Pierce did question the economic viability of moist towelettes. He told his father to invest in video games. But guess what? Apparently, arcades don't make money. So now his father wants revenge.
His dad would make it like super pay to play. He would find a way to make pay to play like even worse and like pay to win mechanics even more evil. This is actually right around the time that Community actually falls off a cliff where Dan Harmon leaves for the following season. So seasons 1 to 3 are really the golden peak era of Community. So we picked a great episode of the bunch here.
What I like about this episode, like in terms of its like setting, is that it actually like it feels like a TV show episode, but it actually like feels like a video game at the same time, where they're playing genuine 8-bit song tracks, not like modern video game music. They're actually sticking to like 1980s music.
Yeah, the intro kind of reminds me of Mega Man with the music. Even though it's the Community theme, like I like it. It's got that fantastic 8-bit melody vibe that really helps set the scene and make it feel like a video game episode.
And I really like the neat features they did with the avatars as well. I mean, I really like Pierce's design. He looks like he looks like he should be working like in a potion shop because he has like his glasses, but you can't see like the dots of his eyes behind them.
Yeah. We during the intro, it's revealed that the game is called Journey to the Center of Hawkthorne, which is kind of similar to like Journey to the Center of the Earth, I guess. I'm not sure if that's what it's inspired by. And I got thrown off because I thought his name was Pierce Hawthorne, which it is. But for some reason we have Hawkthorne, so that's different.
Maybe it was just a bad pun. I'm not sure. You know what I really liked is like how they started back in the study room, and like when they first all spawn, and Britta's like, which one is me? I assume nothing because I'm not racist.
If only she was real, I'm sure Kotaku and Polygon would be begging for her to be one of their employees.
Yeah, I miss Britta. I used to love Britta. She's like that airhead activist that you like just argue with, and then you keep shouting at each other, and then you finally get with each other at the end of the night, like Hugh and Lisa in that future episode of The Simpsons. Yeah. That severe sexual tension. That's what I always liked about Britta and Jeff in the first season, where like Jeff is pursuing Britta, but Britta is like outsmarting him.
They're not really right for each other, like realistically, like at all, which is kind of what makes the dynamic interesting. And I think the character of Britta is like aged fantastically well in the last decade. I think that her character type only becomes more and more relevant.
Oh yeah, I agree, but I didn't watch the last season of Community, so actually I don't know who Jeff ended up with in the end. So
yeah, I kind of dropped off around season 4. I've seen the first 3 seasons about 3 times, and it's fantastic. But you start losing all these cast members, and I know it's about the college and Greendale and that whole deal, but when you start to lose Troy and Pierce and all these great people, it really does make it a struggle to watch a shell of its former self that the show becomes.
Yeah, it's like they like to pluck cast members towards the end. First you had Pierce leaving, then Shirley. No, sorry, Pierce, Troy, and Shirley. The characters in the first season, the main characters, all of them, you feel like the show just doesn't feel the same if like 3 of them are gone. 3 out of 4.
They're the group. They are without the group. If you take away pieces of the whole, it's not the same thing. It's like a whole philosophical thing, but it's not the same. I always wondered why. I didn't always wonder because I know why. Yvette Nicole Brown left the show. I think it was her father was ill, so she wanted to be closer to him. And then she ended up going on this other sitcom that was like way worse and terrible and got canceled. So, it must have been tough for her, but obviously family comes first. But this was definitely the biggest role of her career and her most iconic.
Most iconic after playing Helen and Drake and Josh. Matt's not a Drake and Josh fan, so he's not going to get that, listeners, but you know who I'm talking about.
I think I've actually seen her at least, though.
Yeah, she played like Josh Peck's manager at the movie theater. So yeah, Shirley was always the weakest character, though. I mean, she was like, if I had to pick anyone out of the study group main characters, she'd be the one I'd pick to go.
Well, maybe she was smart to leave because she, showed up in Endgame, one of the biggest movies of the, of our lifetime and many others. So, not too bad.
What also I liked as well is like when they first spawn off and they're all trying to get used to the controls, and you just see Pierce. He's just how incompetent he is. He's just like walking into the wall.
Anyone who's ever played a game with their parents knows what this is like, and they don't know what to do. And I love it when he's like, "Oh, I just pressed right on the stick." He's like, "Oh, well, how was I supposed to know that?"
And I love how Britta in the game is like she's It's like Britta in this episode, like she actually somewhat knows what she's doing. So she's arguing with Jeff all the time. And she's like, "Oh, you're just jealous. We found a world where I know what I'm doing."
Like she knows that she's like an idiot outside of it. Well, not an idiot, but it's really funny, and it's nice to see a world where she doesn't Brita everything. So,
And I liked about Abed's design as well. I noticed when I rewatched this episode for like the second time,
his head's like half his body.
if you look closely at his forehead, like where his forehead meets his nose, it kind of looks like a capital T. And
Oh.
now it's like you can't unsee it. It's like Luigi's nose. It kind of looks like a bra. Now you can't unsee that.
Well, I won't be able to. I like the inclusion of the Mario sound effects as well for the jumping. That was nice. There's a lot of familiar sound effects in this episode.
Yeah, and I like how they do like the little rolls when they jump, and then like when I like how the camera transitions where it's like it's zoomed out and you can see everyone just walking and they're jumping and flipping, and then it zooms in for like serious talking scene.
Yeah, no, that I like that, and it's funny. They fight this like hippie junkie in the hallway or whatever, and he attacks Annie, and Jeff tries to save her, and then he accidentally like kills Annie, and I think it's like Brother goes, "Jeff, you killed Annie," and then he goes, "Well, better than doing nothing," which is like no, it isn't.
I really liked when Jeff died because Abed wouldn't save him because Abed said, we should stick back and like watch their tactics and study their tactics. And then they're all back in the study room. Jeff just keeps hitting Abed because he suggests that idea, and Abed's like, just let him take it all out.
Yeah, it's funny. This episode reminds me a lot of the show Code Monkeys. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It was on G4 back in the day here in Canada, and it was basically an entire show set in this like 8-bit style, and it was about video game developers, but it was also in the style of 8-bit. It was really interesting, and it looked pretty much just like this episode.
I never heard of it. Maybe we didn't get it on my rabbit ear antenna in television.
Yeah, exactly. I was wondering while I was watching this episode, like, why has no fan made this video game like an actual thing?
I believe it is actually I believe there is a fan made game for it now.
Oh, so yeah, it looks like a fan actually did make the game, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, apparently a Reddit user called Durfinman made a fan version of the game. So maybe me and Matt will check it out. We'll play it and we'll probably talk about it in a future podcast. I mean, if it's a fan game, there's a good chance there's a lot of passion and love poured into it.
Yeah, anything community related for our community, I'm totally down to check out. And it looks like a lot of fun playing it. That's how you know you made a good video game for your TV show. When I actually like want to play it, it actually looks fun despite being such an ancient game that's like an 8-bit game.
What I thought was really neat as well in the episode, I like that idea where actually they don't have lives, they just get sent back to the start of the classroom, because I felt like if they had lives in it, there'd be like some corny plot where someone has like to give up a heart to save someone. So
yeah, I'm glad that was left by the wayside. I didn't even notice the live system, honestly, and I think the episode flowed way better without it.
Yeah, that's a kind of like a cheesy trope you see in a lot of things where it's like, I use the rest of my health to bring you back to life. Thank God I liked that writing addition.
Yeah, no, it was great. The gang finally manages to make it past the first area, and it's shown that Gilbert is following them, and he's really good at the game and manages to take out a character that they struggle beating in like 2 seconds with some really cool like flip kicks and moves. So, they show that Gilbert's a force to be reckoned with.
I really liked how he like smothered Pierce, when Pierce dug the hole because he was like having a pity party to himself, and then Gus just builds over top of him.
Yeah, and then Pierce, like after losing, like just goes and tries to do it again to himself, knowing he's gonna lose. That's so like sad seeing the 8-bit sprite go their way to time, but it's really fun.
It's funny because it's an 8-bit graphic game, but it's actually so complicated as well. Like it has like clearly a large amount of features.
There's like a Minecraft crafting system.
Haven't seen many games where you can like scan your face and it turns out that well. I mean, fuck, the software they have in Community is better than the one they have for FIFA games. Ugh,
or our own, Kyle playing NBA 2K there. So it's amazing what they can do.
Or like you can scan your face and use it in the WWE games. Ugh.
Yeah, they never really look quite right. But so later, as the gang makes it to this nice little outside area and Pierce's dad appears, and Pierce's dad calls him Pearsonald, like Reginald or something, which I think is really funny that's his full name. I thought Pierce was just like Pierce. I didn't think it was short for anything.
His dad is like what? Isn't his dad just like some 100-year-old stereotypical racist?
Yeah, pretty much, and that's what makes him. That's what makes his dad work. He's so ridiculous. He's like every stereotype of like what a white supremacist is like put together. He looks like Colonel Sanders. It's fantastic. It's really funny.
Yeah, he's like your stereotypical wasp-looking man. You know what I really liked? Finally go to the town for the first time, and you see Abed talking to that NPC,
Hilda.
and Hilda, and it's like, and he asks her like for more information, and he's like, "Oh my God, where have you been all my life?"
Yeah, where it's just a simple like yes or no answer and just like a conversation tree there. So it's perfect for Abed. That's what he's most used to, probably video games as opposed to interacting with real people. So he's home.
Yeah, it's pretty. It's kind of like a weird blend where it's like an 8-bit video game, but it has like voices as well. Voices like her Hilda's voice kind of sounds like to me like a text to speech translator like you see on like Google.
Yeah, those really help sell the video game world. Another thing I wanted to say about this episode is I think the voice acting of the community cast was fantastic and really did bring these characters to life, and they just sounded so crisp and great, like hearing Annie's voice and all the quips and stuff along with the sprites. It just really worked. Yeah, when Pierce's dad is talking to the gang, he reveals to everyone that the prize for beating the game is his inheritance and that it's not a team game, like they can play against each other. And Gilbert shows up and reveals that he, like I said earlier, he can basically craft anything Minecraft style. And then he makes some throwing knives and just kills the whole group.
It's kind of funny how the killing mechanic works. Like when Annie and Shirley went to the blacksmith to look for weapons, they're still getting used to the controls, and they didn't think they could actually like kill NPCs.
Yeah.
And then they set the place on fire.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I love that. There's a lot of really good humor with that, with the non-playable characters. And it was really funny, even with the playable characters. Britta accidentally kills Pierce, and then she says, "Well, there's no hug button or whatever." And if only video games were made with a hug function, then who knows? We could have world peace by now.
I like to have a function where after like they murdered everyone, like they murdered the blacksmith and the blacksmith's wife, they're like dragging the bodies and hiding them.
I know. They even have like not dimples on the ass cheeks, but like even like reddening like on the sprite. Like someone did the sprite work on. It's really funny. Just the small details really show in this episode.
And then they come out and they have like the bones and the meat in their arms, and then he just realized they killed Hilda's parents.
Yeah, when I first watched this, take notes, I missed that part, but on the second part, it's like even funnier when you realize that Annie and Shirley just like totally killed Abed's in-laws.
And then Troy and Pierce lose their clothes to poker.
Yeah. What's funny about this town is I get a lot of Zelda 2 vibes in this, where you famously go and talk to women, they bring you into their house, and then you're healed magically. What's interesting is the character that Abed falls in love with is named Hilda, which is the bizarro version of Zelda. Her name is Hilda, and there's also a kid in the scene with Hilda to the right that looks a lot like Link, except he's got like gray clothes, but he still has like pinkish hair. That's definitely Link inspired, if you ask me.
No, I didn't notice the Link reference. No.
Yeah, he's there for a little bit. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be Link, or at least like close to it. If not, it's Peter Pan, who the modern Link design's inspired from.
I really liked when Britta like brews the potion for the first time, and then they're trying to fight the boss, and Britta drops the potion. It's like Jeff goes, "Oh, damn it! I thought we could count on Britta to not screw up on drinking."
Yeah, well, you should have made him a green potion. That stuff I hear is pretty good for you.
Full of vitamin C.
Yeah, Gilbert in this is kind of like the Gary Oak of Community, where he just pops in no matter what. He's like ahead of you. He has like badges that don't even exist in the Kanto region. He's got like abilities that no one can even fathom. And that's before he starts cheating.
Yeah, did you notice like when he started cheating, one of the cheats where it had like different modes, one of them was called giraffe mode.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's kind of like that weird game mode in Shovel Knight where it's like every reference to knight or shovel I think is replaced with butt.
Oh my god, now I have to beat Shovel Knight. I didn't know about that. I'm definitely going back to play Shovel Knight for sure.
I found very, very weird, very, very typical of Abed. He stays in back to help Hilda after the house burnt down because he was like, "Oh, she's doomed to just marry a villager," and he feels guilty.
Yeah, like the people in the game are as real to him as real people, since Abed has problems like communicating with people in general. It's such a shame that Sheldon's such like a big pop culture character and Abed, has to live in the shadows.
They need to do like an epic rap battle, Abed versus Sheldon. Like the epic rap battles of history.
There you go. Yeah, you should be credited if they do that. That's a good idea.
So after they finally get that white crystal, then they're confronted by Gilbert, who like is obviously now invincible because the cheats he used. So they try to confront them, but then Gilbert reveals that there's like some sort of like weight mechanism on the seat. So if they get up
For 30 seconds.
yeah, they have to like go back to their seat because there's like some sort of weight plate in the seat. And then you find out that Gilbert is actually the son of Pierce's father. He's like the affair child of Pierce's nanny's hot cousin.
Yeah. So they're half brothers. Dun dun dun.
Gilbert is trying to get the fortune because he believes he's a better claim to it.
And makes sense. I mean, Gilbert, was like the right hand man. He was like the unofficial son. It reminds me of Mr. Deeds, where they, not to spoil Mr. Deeds if you haven't seen at least the reboot. I haven't seen the original, but they find out that the butler is actually the inherits the fortune, and it's very similar to this kind of storyline. And even seeing this episode, I kind of forgot about this twist, and it works.
Yeah, you didn't really see it coming at all.
One thing that's funny is before they make it to the cave, you see like a whole montage of them journeying through offensive locations and stuff in like a little montage, and they go to this area called Gay Island with lots of rainbows, and there's like a big mountain in the middle, and it looks just like Dinosaur Island in Super Mario World, or very strikingly similar. So I don't know if that was intentional, but it very much looks like Super Mario World's Dinosaur Island.
Or the other world I saw was pretty funny. I think it was like the lazy world, but it was just like sombreros. And Britta's like, this is so racist. I called it first. Jeff's like, shut up, Britta.
Who knows what games? What?
The world was like I think the world was supposed to be like the Mexican stereotype of being lazy. Yeah. And Britta just seems to be calling out the racism of the game throughout the episode. So I found that funny.
Yeah, good thing the ESRB never got their hands on this. Their heads would have exploded with this.
Or Peggy for our European listeners. I found funny it was the Black World, and they have like the jive turkeys, and they're just wearing afros and roller skates, I think.
We should say jive turkey more in general. I think that's a fantastic expression. It just makes me happy seeing like a jive turkey. And yeah, it's pretty offensive. But again, this is a game made by basically a white supremacist basically at the helm. So of course it's going to be, as far from politically correct as you can get, where it's just every kind of bias he has is reflected as an enemy in the game, or the villainous lands, basically.
Yes, it's not virtue signaling, folks. He really is a white supremacist. He's evil, and the gang has to slay him. So they're not promoting any hateful ideologies, listeners.
No, it's a comedy show, and that's what's great because, obviously no one would be cool with this person. And Cornelius is just like, not everyone, but a lot of people have older members of their family that are like really insensitive. And he's like that dialed up to 11.
He's your racist uncle at the BBQ. That's what he is. I mean, Jive always reminded me of Airplane. Have you seen that movie with Leslie Nielsen?
No, but I know of it. I know everyone knows of the Don't Call Me Shirley.
Yeah. So there's a Jive reference in that, listeners. So that's what it was. That's what it reminded me of. So I believe they finally kill all the Jive turkeys.
Well, yeah, they get the white crystal. And then they run into Gilbert as they're escaping the castle.
Oh yeah, and then Abed goes, and then they go back and they find Abed in the new town. Yeah.
Yeah, this is after Gilbert cheats and then wipes out the entire group. And it's funny, Gilbert throws a boomerang and cuts off Pierce's head with it. It looks just like the boomerang that Link uses in the N64 Zelda games. It's yellow with like a red gem at the bend.
You had a keen eye for detail in that scene, man.
Well, yeah. I just noticed a lot of stuff that reminds me of Zelda, so I can, if it isn't a Zelda reference, I can justify a Zelda reference out of it somehow. But the music as well in the Black Cave sounds a lot like, and other, like I think the castle as well sounds a lot like the Mario dungeon music, 8-bit style in the original games.
Yeah, and I really like that scene where like Gilbert is like walking to the castle and there's like no talking, but it's just like a video game cutscene. It feels like.
Yeah.
What also I found funny as well is when they go back, start of the game, all the trees are cut down, and Britta's like, "Oh, why are the trees cut down?" Because she's like an environmentalist, and then they find the town or the kingdom that Abed and his new wife Hilda founded on the remains of the old village.
It's almost like, in Ocarina of Time going 7 years in the future and Ganondorf is taken over, where Abed's not evil, but he's basically just like colonized his entire place.
Yeah, well, and he's living in a gold palace, and Britta didn't like that. She said, "I hope it wasn't built with blood gold."
Yeah, and he mentions how he can program his girlfriend basically. She can say his name now and he can basically have babies with her at will. And then they reveal that he's got like this whole like underground mine with his children. Things get dark real quick at this point.
Yeah, the children are like mining, and Annie keeps asking Abed about it, and Jeff's like, just let the Tin Man find his heart.
Yeah. What I noticed on the second time, like I saw it the first time, but on the rewatch, there's like a little corpse there hanging from its neck there in the cell or whatever. I'm like, what the hell is going on here? Is that one of Abed's kids or whatever? Like, what's funny is Abed's kids are basically treated like Pikmin from the Pikmin series in this game, especially later on when they fight Pierce's dad, where they're just used as like projectiles to take down an enemy.
Wait, you haven't seen that movie Snowpiercer, have you?
No, but I heard it might be a prequel to. I heard it might be a sequel to Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Oh, because that child labor scene just reminds me of something in that movie Snowpiercer. That's what I noticed in that episode. Yeah, it's like a very strange ethical issue that Abed is doing.
Obviously, it's terrible, but like I don't know, Abed just doesn't see people the same way others do, so it makes sense that he would have like this like workforce in the video game or whatever of his kids. He's got like a really strange way of looking at things.
Yeah, Abed was always basically Dustin Hoffman's character in that film Rain Man.
Well, yeah,
There's
we get the Rain Man reference of like, don't call Rain Man on me, or don't pull out the Rain Man card now, or whatever, as Pierce gets moving.
Yeah, he said he's playing the Rayman card. Let's bounce after he was trying,
Yeah,
after he agreed to stay with Hilda.
yeah, I love that when they're talking that Pierce accidentally hits Troy with his mace there or his Morning Star. It's really funny.
Oh yeah, he whacks him. Yeah, you like how the characters just like flash between red when they're hurt.
Yeah, it's nice. I think they get like a -1 or something like that too.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, so before the fight at the end, Gilbert reaches the throne room of Castle Hawkthorne, only to be fooled by his father. He gives him this like basically agreement to sign or whatever to sign away his rights, and he says that if you reveal that you're my son or whatever, you won't get the inheritance. It's something like that, right?
Yeah, yeah. Since Pierce's father Cornelius is like a white supremacist, he didn't want Gilbert to be like known officially as his relative, so he made him like sign an agreement to say he wouldn't publicly announce having a tie to the family. And then this is like a really feelsy scene now because Gilbert gets really sad, and then he clicks a no on the terms and conditions.
And then Cornelius chases him out, spitting fire, throwing fire at him. This is really touching. I mean, poor Gilbert. I mean, this is obviously a terrible situation to have someone be your father who like totally like hates you based on something you can't control. It's really really sad. It's like a tragic character, but in this comedy show, he does. It's a nice little arc.
Yeah, and you gotta remember he was like his father's assistant for like 30 years, and he was like his estate executor. So I mean, he probably hung out with his father a lot more than Pierce. He's had to suffer the most brunt of his father's like probably nasty nature.
Well, yeah, Gilbert said in the episode, he said, he once sat on me at church just so we can get a better view.
Oh yeah. Then the scene cuts to Cornelius, and he's confronted by Abed's like minion kids, and they like shoot arrows at them. And obviously, with the technology that Abed's village has produced, the gang are now have to fake Cornelius as a boss because he wants to keep the inheritance to himself now because Gilbert said no. So Troy and Abed are like shooting lava, and they're like Troy and Abed shooting lava.
Yeah, it's great. I love that little shout out. Anytime they reference that, I love it. It's one of my favorite sitcom things ever.
And then they go up in like the little helicopter that like Brit is flying, and they're like they're throwing kids at the Cornelius's like ultimate form boss, and then Brit says, "Take that racism."
Yeah, exactly.
And then Pierce comes in riding like an atomic bomb as like the final finishing move.
Yeah.
He wasn't carrying like a cowboy hat. He wasn't waving it up. That would have made like the reference complete.
Yeah, and he didn't die either, which was nice. It was friendly fire, I guess, and then he just wipes out his dad, and then they win the game. Well, they don't win the game. They choose to tell Gilbert, "Hey, you earned this. You should take the win here."
Yeah, that was like a really feelsy moment. They just the study group decided to forfeit because they just felt really bad that Gilbert had to deal with Cornelius for decades and not get anything in return. So yeah, they just pity him and give him the prize money. That was pretty feelsy.
Yeah, and the way that Pierce was so quick to accept him as his brother, I thought that was pretty fast. Like, I don't think Pierce would be that cool about it, but still a nice ending.
Community's always had like good, like really niche feelsy scenes. There's like a scene there's like an episode in the first season of Community where Abed's like making a movie about his family, and like
Mhm.
Abed says to Jeff, you can play the role of my father. I don't want to be your father. Perfect. Yeah, that
Yeah.
was really feelsy.
Yeah, no, the Community is actually one of the most, it's a unique show, and it's very meta. You have Abed who says, "Oh, that's so meta," like all the time, and he's almost like aware he's in the show. It's so well done. It's like almost like a Rick Sanchez Deadpool kind of vibe for Abed, and he's a great character.
Yeah, Abed is like what we would call the breakout character. He's like the Bender to Futurama, the Homer to the Simpsons. The
The Kramer.
character like you never thought that would become the most popular character, like Fonzie and Happy Days as well.
Yeah, and I just really like this episode. I was gonna say this earlier, but I'm glad I waited till the end. Where this I think is like the best video game episode ever made. If I had to put my money on it.
Oh man, that's a really tough one there. I mean, I disagree. I'm gonna have to say it's the World of Warcraft parody episode in South Park.
That's true. I didn't think of that one when I said it. I think that this is either a close second or can compete with it. Seeing the boys' transformation in that episode was fantastic, and I think that maybe that should be one of the next ones we talk about is the World of Warcraft episode.
Yeah, we definitely need to do a discussion around the South Park video game centric episodes. Katara, Queero, Make Love, Not Warcraft. Yeah, that's an episode for in the future listeners. We'll definitely do that.
Yeah, definitely. But I still think this is a really strong video game episode that manages to be a good episode of Community while also being like a really well fleshed out video game episode that video game and Community fans alike can enjoy.
Yeah, and you know what I really liked about the ending as well is where they go out to hang out with each other, and then Abed comes back in and he takes he like copies Hilda onto like a USB,
Yeah,
and then so he can like have his girlfriend
I thought it was the
forever.
whole game that he copied over.
Or he copied the whole game, yeah, but he like copied whatever all the files.
Well, we know that he works for Shield as well. Maybe that'll be a new MCU storyline.
The Dean got a cameo when Captain America Civil War.
Yeah, we've seen the Dean. I think we've seen Ken Jeong. We've seen Shirley. We've seen Abed, and Troy's played the Prowler. Yeah, I don't think Pierce is going to show up because Chevy Chase was like notoriously rough to deal with on the show. And Joel McHale, I'd like to see him show up, but he's not really like a walk-on kind of role actor, I find.
Speaking about Chevy Chase, so the post-credit scene we see is, when Troy and Abed go back and they see the baby lying on the table, and then they talk about how they're going to raise it.
Yeah.
Yeah, apparently that's actually like an alternative ending they had to film, because originally there was like a scene where Abed comes in, hands Pierce a copy of the game, and the game allows him to play baseball, or sorry, play catch with like a giant, with like, the giant head of his father, and then like Pierce cries and then he hugs Abed and thanks him for giving him this game. But apparently what happened is that Chevy Chase, he didn't feel up for filming that day because this was like the last episode of season 3 they filmed. Chevy Chase he was complaining about being tired, so they went home, and Dan Harmon had a big spat with Chevy Chase over this as well. And you gotta remember, Dan Harmon was like pretty angry at the time because he knew this was his last season.
Yeah, and this is like his last thing to shoot for it.
Yeah, and Dan Harmon got very angry at Chevy Chase in the sense that like blamed Pierce for being awkward because the sets were even torn down that day. So that scene they add in with like Troy and Abed seeing the baby, it doesn't even make sense in the continuity of the show because Troy and Abed were like expelled from the college like 2 episodes ago.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that, but it does seem very tacked on for sure and totally irrelevant to the episode.
Yeah, it was just sliced in at the end because Chevy Chase was an awkward dude. I mean, he did end up leaving the show in its 4th season.
I can see him being tough to work with, but Chevy Chase is a comedy legend, and I love what Pierce brings to the show. I think he's like a really fantastic element.
Oh, that man is not aged well. I mean, if you go look at him in like Caddyshack, and then go look at him in Vegas, National Lampoon's Vegas Vacation, and then like 9 years later, look at him in Community. He has aged terribly. He's
aged like organic fruit and vegetables. It's not ideal.
He's aged like milk. That's what he has. He's like Bill Murray. Bill Murray's aged terribly as well.
Yeah, those 80s and 70s comedy icons have had a rough go.
Maybe being on SNL ages you by like 20 years.
Exactly. Another thing what's funny is I mentioned Mega Man earlier, but it says on IMDb that Jeff Sprite jumps with the same animation as Mega Man does in the NES games. So that's a nice touch.
Oh, you found that off like the trivia section of the IMDb page?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. Huh. I guess I rewatched it twice and I didn't notice that jump. But then again, I don't play Mega Man. I never have.
It's funny. It also says that the plot of this episode is almost certainly inspired by the novel Ready Player One, published in 2011 by Ernest Cline, in which participants in a virtual reality compete in order to receive an inheritance. So, I didn't think about that, but I love Ready Player One, so fine by me. Another cool fact here is it says the computer voice that counts down seconds to disqualification when they're getting out of their seats is the voice of GLaDOS from the Portal series.
Oh my God, is it? The cake is a lie. I didn't notice that.
So hey, there's a lot of good Easter eggs that even me and Alan coming through the episode missed. So definitely recommend it. If you guys don't watch Community, at least watch this episode because there's a lot of good gaming stuff in there, gaming tidbits.
Any RPG player born in the 80s or the 90s is definitely gonna love the callbacks to nostalgic video game platforms.
Yeah.
So Matt, what were your favorite lines in this episode?
I think Britta had some good lines, but Pierce just like leave me alone to die and going to suffocate himself was fantastic.
I think one of the lines I liked was like Britta's like trying to like adjust I think it was like the painting on the wall, and Jeff is like, Britta, stop playing like a girl, and then she fixes it, and then she goes, see Jeff, us women, we don't hack and slash our way through life because we're one with life.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I like that. I think it was a really good episode.
Yeah, it was a great episode. I mean, I noticed in the opening as well, it's like when the players were falling down, it kind of like reminded me of like the Digimon intro.
Yeah.
And then the beams of light for the characters when they're like being beamed to the study room. It just kind of reminded me of like that trail the Powerpuff Girls do when they're flying.
And Pierce's dad, of course, is a digital monster in this episode with the stuff he tries to pull off. So it's all full circle here.
Yeah, it's full circle indeed.
Yeah, so if you guys like what you heard here today, you can find us on Twitter at The Green Potion Pod. We're pretty active there, as well as our Instagram, which is at The Green Potion Podcast, or our Facebook page, The Green Potion Podcast. There's plenty of posts there. And we're available on iTunes, Podbean, Spotify, Google Play.
We're also available on iHeartRadio and YouTube.
Subscribe to us there and like our videos if you like this content to let us know that we should focus more on these topics.
If there's anything you didn't like or you did like, please comment on whatever platform you were watching this on. Leave us a review on iTunes, where we always appreciate feedback.
Yeah, let us know a great video game episode that we should cover.
Yes, I'm really hoping to cover that episode of the Game Sphere and Drake and Josh. I just have to get Matt to watch it somehow.
As long as, hey, if we can do the Tally episode, even though they don't play a game that we see in it with the Okama Game Sphere, I can do that. And I can live with Drake and Josh. I'd watch Drake and Josh. I've seen him on stuff back in the day. I'll watch it.
Oh, there we go. That's an idea for later episodes.
And with that, thanks for joining Matt and Alan on the podcast. We'll catch you next time. Keep cutting that grass.